Welcome to Future Ready Live, where we talk about topics that will help CPAs, CGMAs, and their organizations adapt and thrive in an accelerating, exponentially changing world. I'm your host, Tom Hood, the EVP of Business Engagement and Growth at the AICPA and CIMA, the largest global body of certified professional accountants in the world, and the only one that represents both public accounting and management accounting around the world. Today, we're going to be talking about GenAI and the future of finance and accounting, insights from our second AI Symposium. And joining me after I give you the brief future of finance perspective will be Erik Asgeirsson, President and CEO of CPA.com, who convened the meeting, and Mark Koziel, President and CEO of AICPA and CIMA. With that, let's get right to it. Michael Cerami opened up the symposium, highlighting the broad ecosystem approach and the idea of the wisdom of the crowd. The only way you can keep on top of all this stuff is truly to be with the crowd and find out what everyone is working on. And that's exactly what Erik has mastered here with this bringing together this ecosystem. The big four major firms, core audit, tax, and advisory technical committees from AICPA and CIMA, our Future Finance Leadership Advisory Group, represented by Roger Kenyana, pictured, who heads Lowe's corporate AI transformation. So with that, let's jump right into it. So first, the major topics that were covered over this full day. Believe me, it was a full day. Big topics like regulatory landscape, AI in accounting and finance, the broad perspective, the AI landscape, agentic AI, AI innovations, and data-centric AI. And if you think about this notion of agents, and Salesforce did an amazing demo of what these look like, it literally feels like we've added a rocket booster to the speed of GenAI already. And I would say if I had to summarize the whole symposium, it would be Bachman Turner Overdrive's song, "You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet." With that, let's get right into it. My big insight over this piece, and here we had Gartner jump in and give us the really broad overview, and you can see they brought into the hype cycle, the opportunity radar, and a couple other pieces. But it was also that we're seeing this idea of audit and finance. In other words, are we going to be auditing AI as a new service in addition to using audit for the financial reporting and obviously all the assurance work that we do as a profession? Think about like SOC and blockchain and some of those developments. I think there is a big opportunity there, and that was kind of an interesting perspective that came in as well. Next one was Matt Koziel. Obviously, he brought in this notion of the Gartner hype cycle, which everybody should be familiar with. But what I think is interesting there is look at where GenAI is already. Just since November of 2022, it's kind of topped the hype cycle and now in the what you would call the peak of inflated expectations, getting ready to go towards that trough of disillusionment. Now, Matt said Gartner believes it will soar through this and go into the slope of enlightenment and the plateau of productivity faster than we're used to. A lot of technologies could take years to go through the hype cycle. He believes with the way AI has been moving, it's going to go through that rather quickly. Now, that doesn't mean it won't be without trouble or challenges. Now, also look at what's now new on that thing, quantum computing. And Microsoft announced earlier this year, they actually found a fourth state of matter as they were building out their quantum chips. And obviously there's a lot to learn about that, but that's now on the hype cycle, and we can see it's going to be moving our way pretty soon. Now, Matt intrigued everyone with, he had a slide talking about their three predictions, and then he stopped and went in and asked for questions. So everybody said, wait a minute, what were those three predictions? So Matt brought these back up and said, here are the big ones. 2028, what year is it? 2025. 60% of finance orgs will use AI in scenario planning, and given all the geopolitics going on, the tariffs and everything, we're going to need that probably sooner than 2028. By 2028, finance orgs adopting auto data retrieval platforms will save up to 75% of time on data management. And by 2029, 1/3 of finance will occupy shared jobs where AI and a person will perform a single job together. Now, that kind of highlights this. We'll talk about that in a second. Now, let's go into that regulatory landscape. This is where Mark Peterson, um, and obviously building on Matt's work, but Curtis Phillip, SVP of the Alpine Group in DC, was on hand, and Bill Wyman, the founder of Tech Dynamics. Those three really gave us a kind of whole look at the landscape of this stuff. So a couple key points here. Mark made the point that relative to AI and Gen AI, in 10 years, we went from one registered lobbyist to 465 registered lobbyists this year. You have to register by what area you're going to be representing people on. 465 from one. Already there are 800 pieces of proposed legislation to regulate AI and Gen AI in the US alone. That doesn't count the EU, UK, and the rest of the world. So a couple major pieces there. I think it's amazing to think about how much has moved. All right, let's get to this idea of how does it impact the future of finance. This gets to our management accounting side. And we had a big symposium at the end of last year. Obviously, AI has been the number one issue, or number two now, behind need for new skills. And I think this puts that exclamation mark on it. By the way, you can scan that QR code and you can get a full report from that summit. It covers a big chunk of AI, including practical use cases. But more importantly, look at those skills. This comes from HBR, Harvard Business Review, talking about embracing Gen AI at work. If you look at that, that highlights what Gartner's third prediction was, right? That humans and technology will be partnering literally in the shape of jobs. And we're seeing lots of that. In fact, Heather Unruh channeled from Salesforce, she channeled her CEO, Mark Benioff, who said at the World Economic Forum, we're the last generation of CEOs, I would add, and CFOs to supervise only human workforces. So welcome to the age of humans and people and bots working side by side. So next we cover our playbook. This is helping our finance teams progress from what we would call scorekeeper over to futurist. We like to say we're moving from transactional accounting to strategic finance. That QR code will get you our white paper, and there's a interactive assessment you can take to figure out where your team is and where you want to be, which is the whole point. This takes us across those 5 levels, from scorekeeper, advisor, partner, value creator to futurist, and across 5 dimensions: technical, business, digital, leadership, and the people part. So that gives you a good way to kind of practically do that. Now let's talk about the impact on the shape of finance and accounting. And what you can see now is we're going to move from a pyramid to a pentagon. And that's this idea of shaving off the 2 sides of that big triangle. One's going to be the movement of AI and bots like RPA into that human element. And then the 4th side is outsourcing and offshoring. Now, almost all of our future finance corporates, this is probably 60 Fortune 500s, they would say they're not thinking about AI replacing people. They're thinking about AI replacing future workforce needs, looking out maybe 5 years. That's where you see the bots and humans coming into play. But they're all trying to figure it out as we go right now. And the skills you need, actually, yes, there's some deeper technical data analytics in particular. You're going to have to get good with understanding AI. But more importantly, the boundary crossing competencies. We call the T-shaped professional. And you can see the number 1 is always strategic and critical thinking, anticipating and serving evolving needs, looking around corners, obviously communication and storytelling, emphasis on storytelling, clearly integration and collaboration, and then finally leadership and sense making, wrapping up all around that. So that's basically the highlights that I came back with from our future finance perspective. You're going to hear Mark and Erik in a minute, but this is the program we've got coming up on April 9th with Mark Peterson and Alex Bant, Gartner's Chief of Research and Finance Practice VP. And we'll put a link to this one in the channel, as well as you can join us. Mark Peterson will be presenting at the Gartner CFO Conference on May 20th and 21st, National Harbor, Maryland, where Mark will be covering the latest developments in DC, updating from this April 1 tax, tariffs, and the latest regulatory and global pieces happening. And then obviously I'll be there with Barry Payne, members of our Future Finance Leadership Advisory Group. So now I'm going to turn it over to Mark and Erik, who did a quick update right after the symposium that we've got integrated in this. Mark Koziel, obviously our new president and CEO of AICPA-CIMA. Erik Asgeirsson, president and CEO of CPA.com. Thank you for being here.
Hi, I'm Erik Asgeirsson, the CEO of CPA.com, and I'm with Mark Koziel, the CEO of the AICPA. Mark, it's great to be with you. Yesterday, Mark and I hosted our second annual AI Symposium here in our New York office. Mark, these symposiums are very important for us, and you and I talk a lot about them. What we do in these symposiums is we bring leaders from firms, from business and industry members, and we bring our technology solution partners together, and we talk about these technology triggers. This symposium was all about AI, a lot of discussions around GenAI, and we really talk about how these technologies are transforming the practice of finance and accounting. We look at trends, and we talk about strategies on how to really harness and build opportunities through these new capabilities.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, just to, as you mentioned, to have all aspects of the profession, firms, small, medium, large, business and industry, and then the technology providers coming together, even a little bit of kind of regulatory too, right?
That's
Because
right.
we have to keep a focus on that. And it just shows the future is bright. Everyone wants to put the accountant out of business. AI supposedly was the next iteration of putting us out of business, yet everything I heard yesterday was incredibly positive and just a ton of opportunity.
Well, let's unpack a little bit of that, Mark, because you're exactly right. Always with these, if it was blockchain or cloud computing, they're always talking about how this is going to automate things, so there won't be as much work for the profession. And actually, the opposite is true, because these technologies create new opportunities, and the businesses want someone else to really run these machines. So, as you see on this slide here, what this is a result of is some primary research that CPA.com is doing related to the AI-driven practice area developments. So here's 5 takeaways. The first takeaway we all are very familiar with, bookkeeping and automation is already AI driven. It was driven over the last 7 years with a lot of machine learning, and now GenAI is playing a role, agentic AI is playing a role, and it's going to become fully automated, and that's fantastic, because that type of work is not really value add. It's not really what necessarily the business clients are looking for them to do.
That's right. And I think as you step through all of these, this is where we keep talking about being that trusted advisor. So automate the routine,
Right,
so that we can humanize the other things we need to do with the client. And that's really the skill that we're driving towards. Gen AI and AI and agentic AI is going to make all that easier, and the client doesn't value that anyway. So it's getting to a point of getting to the things that the client truly values.
But Mark, there is a lot of excitement around agentic AI, and that's like the next generation of RPA. And really, there's a lot of hope that this is just going to, make the workflow that much more intuitive to automate. So here's a number of other trends, and we're going to be releasing a blog and a report related to this research in the coming weeks and months. But a lot going on in the tax preparation space. A lot of automation continuing in how the information is driven into the tax prep software. Things are happening in the audit and risk area. It's a little bit happening a little bit more slowly, which makes sense because there's a lot of risk there. Advisory services, I think this is something that is going to be heavily enabled by AI, but it's still kind of a work in progress a little bit. But when I think about the cloud really drove the CAS movement, client accounting services movement. I think AI, Mark, is going to really enable the advisory element of the firm.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think especially when you look at these other three pieces and, so again, let's take the routine, let's set it aside. That's all AI driven. But then there's other pieces, like you said, with audit and risk advisory. Who's going to audit the AI that's being relied upon within a company? Who's going to audit the internal controls over the AI inside of organizations? And then you have the advisory of implementing AI inside of these companies. And so as we automate 1, 2, and 3 inside of firms, that provides the opportunity for 4 to grow like crazy. So it's just a multitude, multi-layered opportunities that we're seeing in all of this.
Well, here in the fifth one is something that the business and industry members are very familiar with, because when they look at companies today, the area that is leading the way in some ways in the use of Gen AI is around marketing, email automation, so really connecting with your client base.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's more the administrative aspect of it, and some of the other areas of a business that have automated first inside of AI, taking advantage of that, now bringing that into the finance function. Interestingly, I believe there was somewhere that they talked about implementation within public accounting firms and implementation within finance functions of a business.
Right.
But the finance function is a little bit behind where public accounting is.
That's right.
And need to catch up. But again, if you're in a firm, that provides that opportunity. And I think with how much we do as a profession to help our members in business and industry as well, those two pieces really are going to be helpful.
Well, Mark, let's close with this kind of higher level slide that you reviewed with all the attendees yesterday. And this highlighted, just some broad implications for accounting and finance teams.
Yeah. So, you think about new skills. What new skills do we need? How do we upskill the current members that we have inside our organizations? What do the career paths look like as we move forward from there? Competitive positioning. How do we make sure that we are competitive as a profession when we're talking about this from an AI perspective as we go forward? And then the client relationship focus, and I think that's really getting into the value add is AI, data analytics, all these pieces in audit. How do we become more insightful for our client? How do we help our client also get more AI driven, the career path? And we're starting to hear this actually is, that the younger professional, we're asking them for a different skill set. But then the career path changes a bit too, because we're asking them to be bigger, faster, smarter out of the gate. Mm-hmm. And so their career path is going to change and their trajectory is going to change based on that as well.
Well, Mark, lots happening. It's like 2.5 years now since Gen AI came on the scene with ChatGPT in the fall of 2022. What I'm excited about is these solution providers are truly putting in place new capabilities. We're not talking about, the what of Gen AI. We're talking about the outcomes that these solutions can drive into practice. So we'll be talking about this on future town halls. We also will have a press release that you can read about all the different presentations. We have a press release that we sent out, and that highlights all the different presentations from yesterday. But we also, Mark, have these storyboards, and we'll show a visual of those as well to the listeners here.
Yeah, the storyboards are great because it gives you kind of that graphical, visionary. There's people who are tactile learners and need to read it. Right. Others like to see it visually. Being able to provide both of those to the profession is great. And for me to walk those boards after we were done last night and seeing the progress and all the different pieces of how AI contributes to the profession, it was really a great presentation.
So we'll make a link available to, I think there's like 4 storyboards, and you can kind of get a visual of what we did yesterday. But Mark, it's great being with you here today, and look forward to continuing this discussion on how AI and these technologies are really transforming the profession.
Sounds great. Look forward to working with the profession, make us the greatest profession in the world. That's going to continue. AI is going to help enhance that. So look forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you.